tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, RBLR Sports, the Tampa Bay Rowdies show. We are coming off of a roller coaster of a weekend for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. The Rowdies played to a dramatic, to say the least, 3-2 win versus Hartford out in Connecticut. Last week, Yurika and Brett predicted wins. Obviously they know everything, so hopefully they keep predicting wins. We can keep getting those wins. Really great show we have here. Really looking forward to talking about this game. But before we do any of that, let me ask Yurika, who's filling in here for James, still touring around Germany. Yurika, how are you doing this week? What's going on?
Man, I am doing amazing. This was good. I've watched this game twice now, and there's chaos and order and amazingness and head-scratching moments, and ultimately we won. So, hey, it's a great time.
At the end of the day, that's all that matters, to be honest. I mean, there's a little bit of controversy, and we'll touch on that soon. But at the end of the day, we got the 3 points in dramatic fashion, like I keep saying. Apart from that, we have the upcoming game against Loudoun to preview over in Loudoun, Virginia. So good stuff to talk about here on the show. Before we get into all of that, make sure to drop a follow at RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And please go ahead and like and subscribe to our podcast on all major podcast platforms. Wherever you find your podcast, you'll find us there. So really quickly, let's go ahead and jump into the game review here.
Yeah.
I'll hop into that, and then we can, break it down a little bit, hop into the questions and analysis. So the biggest thing to note here, I thought off the bat, was that the Rowdies started off again in their 4 in the back formation. Has been kind of a trend after the Pittsburgh game, with Cochran still in goal, and then the back line being made up of Guillen, Van Kazel, Scarlett, and Wyke. In the midfield, we had Ekra and Hilton, as well as Dalgard, Fernandez, and LaCava kind of filling in that attacking mid role, with Dos Santos as the lone striker who returned from injury to his starting role. So good to see him back and healthy. It was definitely a cagey and tight matchup throughout most of the first half, with the Rowdies having only a couple shots on target, but they did have the only shots on target of the half. Sustained pressure and possession for the Rowdies started around the 30th minute, with Dos Santos stripping the ball on a Hartford throw-in, which would lead into the first goal of the game, an absolute rocket from Sebastian Dalgard, as Hilton found him wide open on the right side of the field, and he just lasered one bar down right into the goal. A beautiful shot, and one that I admittedly watched on replay about 10 to 15 times. At the end of the first half, there were no shots on target allowed by the Rowdies defense. Definitely an impressive showing from them, and the Rowdies looked to be controlling the game. But that would not last long, as the Rowdies would let in a pretty silly goal after having a dangerous attack of their own. On what was essentially a clearance from the Hartford back line, Cochran just kind of headed the ball into the middle of the field, gifting Hartford a dangerous opportunity, which would lead to, a pretty easy goal from Daniel Barrera. Probably one of the easiest he'll score all season. The Rowdies would respond well, but they couldn't finish on about 3 dangerous chances they had created. And in a game where, soccer is a game where if you don't score, you'll get scored on. If you don't take your opportunities, the opportunities will come back and haunt you. And Hartford did just that, as Rashawn Daly scored at the second goal for Hartford just 7 minutes later. Guillen kind of lost his man on the wing. It was possibly offsides, but nonetheless, Guillen did lose his man, and that led to an easy goal for them. Leo Fernandez would eventually tie the game on a penalty, which Dos Santos drew. And while the Rowdies would control possession after that, nothing really dangerous came until the 98th minute, Yurika. 98th minute. There was only 3 minutes of added time, and somehow we ended up in the 98th minute after Jordan Scarlett drew a red card. And a 10-man Rowdies squad held possession for a little bit and would be looking for some space. Dayon eventually had his moment of brilliance as he ran into the box and was tripped by Joel. Leo would eventually slot away the game winner in a dramatic game as the Rowdies bench left for joy. It was really cool to see so much emotion from the players. A group that's sometimes can be like pretty, cold, ice in their veins. It's always fun to see them excited. A dramatic game, an insane game to say the least, Yurika.
Yeah.
Let's hop into the breakdown here because there's a lot to talk about.
We get so much, man. I'm sitting here like, oh God.
Yeah, there's a lot here, and I'm really excited to get into this. So I think the first question that comes up in my mind, Hartford is not a particularly strong team this season. They're lower to middle of the pack, but they seem to outplay us at least at most of the second half. What was going on there? Did we get away with one here? Was this a deserved 3 points, do you think?
Well, they got it, so yes, of course they deserve. Yeah. But outside of that cliche, no, I think the Rowdies deserve to win this game, and it was. We'll get into it, I think, in a couple questions from now. But really, they gave up. Well, they earned everything that they got. I don't have any questions about some of those things, but. And they probably should have more. There were at least 3 huge chances that should have been converted, I think, and we'll get into that too. But the 2 that they conceded, I mean, one was you made a bonehead mistake. Now it's a 3v1 or 3v2, and boom, they took advantage of it. And then the second goal was also kind of a lightning strike out of nowhere. All of a sudden, boop! It was a volley to another volley to an open man, got behind the line and just converted. And it's like they deserve to concede those 2 goals, but throughout the entire match, I'm looking at the statistics, but I'm like the Rowdies, they had more chances, they should have had more shots, they played a little cleaner game, I think, and ultimately I think they earned the 3 points.
Right. I'm hesitant to say that we just fully I don't know, like watching the game back, we held I feel like we had the longer spells of possession, the more dangerous chances, but in what kind of has been a trend, I wouldn't say a trend, maybe like an on and off thing, has been missing really clear opportunities. Earlier this season, it seemed to be more of a problem. In the past 8 or 9 games, we haven't noticed it as much because we've been winning games. We've been at least tying. We haven't lost a game. I think this has been the most noticeable that problem has been since that bad stretch of games back in April. There was just, I could name a bunch of just, really silly mistakes from our attack that seemingly looked like easy chances. Everything looks easier from the broadcast, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's like an open goal or anything, but there was a couple chances that should have been buried in the back of the net, like no doubt. Yeah. And the one that comes to my mind is the Dos Santos header. It was the 67th minute. I have it in my notes here.
Okay.
It would have been the equalizer earlier than the penalty. Leo just put in a beautiful ball right on the spot. Dos Santos was literally by himself. He had at least 5 yards of space between him and the nearest player. Basically at the penalty spot. He just missed a header wide. La Cava had a chance earlier in the game where he was essentially one-on-one with the goalie and just waited a little too long to let go of the ball. He was kind of dribbling a little bit, waiting to fake the player out with a shot. Waited a little too long. Jan Ekra had a great opportunity early in the game where the ball kind of just fell to his feet. I think it was off a corner or a set piece or something. Just missed the ball wide. Who else? Dos Santos had another chance, kind of one-on-one from the right. It was a little bit of a harder opportunity earlier in the game, narrow angle. But these are just the chances I'm naming off the top of my head.
The one that I would point out is kind of sandwiched in between one you already talked about, and that at 51 minutes, like La Cava gets just this amazing one-on-one chance because Leo gets the ball at midfield and just sets him up perfectly, and now we've got our chaos creator in the box one-on-one, and what does he do? Well, now I'm thinking he possibly wanted to set up the right leg instead of a direct strike with the left, because as soon as he gets it, he can take maybe one dribble, and then he would have had enough time to just send it. And I'm sitting here this on edge of my couch, like, yes. Because I'm like, that's a recipe for success. If we can get Jake LaCava in the box, I'm sitting here getting like goosebumps just thinking about it. But then instead of striking it, he dribbles, and then tries to like, now a defender is now on him. So he kind of like sidesteps maybe to set up to the other leg, and then it gets eradicated. And so, earlier in the year when I was on the show filling in, that was one of my hot takes. I was like, we have to convert these chances. It's like, enough is enough. Yeah, we're quote unquote better than these teams that we're playing, and we win every statistical battle or whatever except for balls in the net,
Right.
And it was a lot of things like this where we're like, stop being cute. I'm not calling LaCava trying to be cute in this particular instance, but it's one of those things where just fire it, man. Like, and that's a particular player that I have full confidence in. Just like if he drills it and it sails over the net or whatever, we're like, hey man, what are you gonna do? If that's not the best chance for you to score, there is not a better one. Like, okay, hey man, I'll take you missing 10 of those because you're gonna convert more than you miss in that instance. So.
Right. Yeah, and those are just the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Like, there was definitely at least a few more chances that weren't necessarily like one-on-one or right in front of the goal, but chances where, if you dump off the ball a little earlier, you're in one-on-one.
Yeah.
It was just a weird game like that because it felt like we had control of the game. We were creating these chances, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, but then all of a sudden we give up 2 goals and we're down 2-1. It's just a different game. But so I'm not going to fully say that, we deserve to win this game. I think at the end of the day, it was just kind of the attitude of the players, the grit, the personality of the guys on the team. Like, this is a really mentally tough squad.
Yeah.
And that's something I noticed when watching the game back. These guys are like very emotional when they play. Like when they need to be. Like I said earlier, they're not that emotional usually. They're pretty stoic. Even Leo did his like ice in his vein celebration after the penalty. But when they need to kind of light that fire a little bit, you can see it on the field. When they go down 1-0 early in games in the past, that lights that fire in them a little bit. You can tell they get a little frustrated. They get very frustrated, and they turn up the notch. These guys looked frustrated. They looked angry, and they turned it up a notch. And I think that grit was the thing that carried them through to find those just chances, scrapping through, and eventually winning 3-2.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting statistic that now continues where we're at least unbeaten, I think, in the last 9 or 10 games that we've scored first.
Right.
Or where there's an overwhelming disparity. When we score first, we win. And this was one of the rare instances where we scored first and we didn't concede and then come back and then get it at the end of the game. This was an instance where we went up and then conceded the goal, and it's kind of, I'm not saying they sat back, but the second half definitely was a with the substitutes that came in and just a different attacking philosophy in the second half. Hartford wasn't ready to just earn the draw or whatever, at least at that point in the game. They were coming for us, and unfortunately we gave up a silly goal, and that could have broken the spirit,
Yeah.
Whatever the tactics or mentality were at that point, well, guess what? You gave up a goal. Now it's back to square one, literally.
Right. And then again, like, I think, like, I just love seeing this team get emotional when it does happen, because as a fan, especially, you can tell, like, they're playing, they're playing to win. They're not just going away for a tie. They're not satisfied with that. They're going to keep fighting until they win. Like, it's a confident team that feels like they deserve to win every game. And when they play well, I mean, they do. And it's really, I think, what's the word? Not comforting, but more like it's encouraging as a fan when you're watching the game And you see Neil Collins just yelling out of his mind, like just going crazy, and the microphone picking up just obscene like words that he says on the field that you just can't be repeated on the broadcast. And, like that brings out something, like positive in the fan. And I'm sure it brings out something positive in the players who are fighting to win here. Like they get riled up by that. And again, I mean, this is all like intangible things. You can't keep track of that by the stats and whatever. But I mean, as a fan, when you're watching the flow of the game here, like that's something that you can tell keeps them fired up. And I think at the end of the day, that's what carried us to the win. It's just kind of that sustained pressure and the continued like grit and desire to win there. And I don't know. Again, that's not something you can look at the stats and be like, oh yeah, that's what happened. But as the fan's perspective from the TV, it's just kind of what it looked like.
Well, one statistic you can rely on is when you earn 2 penalties and you convert them into goals.
Exactly.
So that kind of brings up the next point is maybe there was a little bit of controversy in this game. So, Mr. Rueda, I ask you, do you agree that we should have gotten both of these penalties here?
I saw a lot of debate about this on Twitter. Even from some Rowdies fans, there were some people that were a little hesitant to say that, that was a clear penalty. The second one, at least. Okay. I feel like we can generally agree that the first one was a penalty. It looked pretty clear. The replay showed him tripping him up. The second one was a little more unclear, but I mean, every time I saw a replay, I mean, again, this could be the bias showing through, obviously, as a Rowdies fan, but you feel like a little, like every time you see the replay, oh yeah, he clips him at least a little bit there. And I'm sure, I'm not saying Dion was going in there looking for a penalty. It's possible because of the fact that we were down to 10 players and we're in the 98th minute at that point, and you're just looking to do whatever you can. But it looked like he got clipped a little bit. Probably felt the contact and went down a little easier than he normally would have earlier in the game. If it's 11-on-11, it's tied game, whatever. So I will say I think it was a penalty. So I'm not going to say that it wasn't, but, it's just one of those cases where maybe another referee wouldn't have called it, in that situation. 98th minute, maybe it wasn't like strong enough of a foul for him to call that. Because sometimes that kind of thing can be subjective, but, based on what I saw, it looked like a foul. Like it would have been called a foul outside the box. Yeah. So in my opinion, if that's the case, I don't think, I think you should be objective and call it a foul, whether it's inside the box or outside the box, no matter what time it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, what time in the game it is. And obviously that helps us out as Rowdies fans, and we got the win. So I'm not going to complain about that. But yeah, I could see how and why some Hartford fans were upset. But again, I still think it was a penalty.
I think it's a beautiful, events all unfolding at the same time. Now, if you rewind back and Leo Fernandez had a run a minute or so before where he was I think he was diving for sure.
That one was questionable. I could see why that wasn't a foul.
Yeah, he gets pushed and he's like calling for, hey, he pushed me.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, come on. Like, hey, man. Like, hey, I want to win this game as much as you do. But like, hey, man. That was super questionable. But then again, the straight red that was given to Scarlett, I mean, I unless you can tell me he spiked him for sure. It seemed like a pretty soft to be a straight red.
Sure.
So I don't know, and it will regardless of what we think. I know that Guillen was like definitely politicking, like in a good way, the way you're supposed as the captain, is the way you're supposed to do. So maybe at that time, at the 90+8 minute in the match, because that was part of it too, is the time taking to get a player off the field. There's a little bit of gamesmanship by Hartford, but not as much as we had earlier in the season. But there was definitely like they were playing to keep the tie and earn the point, where we, even with 10 men, were still attacking. We were still progressing the ball. We were creating these chances that even gave us the opportunity. And then when Harris just dead sprints into that box, and he gets clipped. It's like, he got clipped. Yeah, it was right on the edge of the box, but guess what, man? You clipped him, you put him in the box, and now that's a penalty, whether that's the first minute or the 90 plus 200 minutes.
Right.
So yeah, it's with a lot of chaos in those last 5-10 minutes of the game for sure.
It was chaos is definitely putting it lightly. It was just it was crazy to watch live for sure. And I was out in LA watching this on my phone as it all unfolded, telling all these people who have never heard of the Rowdies about this game, and getting like 20 people watching this penalty like on my phone. It was crazy. It was just crazy moments all around, honestly. And I don't know. And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you can't ask for anything more. The excitement was just through the roof, and getting to see all there were some Rowdies fans there behind the bench, and they were very happy, as you can imagine. The Rowdies bench going crazy. All of that was just such a great time to watch. But anyway, apart from that, moving on, I do want to ask about some of the players that we saw finally returning to the field or starting again. Players that have been injured, not necessarily, I don't necessarily know what exactly their injuries were, but not too major. We just know that they were injured. Dos Santos was starting. I think he might have made an appearance last week or the week before, but he was off the bench, or he was on the bench or something like that.
Correct. This is the first start in a long
time. First start. And then Kazel came back. He started as well. And then Jake Armin was the player that returned off the bench. He came in about the 72nd minute, I believe. So I kind of want to go through here and break down some of these. I guess like give a little, somewhat of a rating, a review of how these players did. So I want to start with Dos Santos here, because he was probably the most noticeable, given his role in the front, and he's kind of just an imposing figure up there. I don't want to trash him because he's a great player. I love Steven Dos Santos, and he didn't have a bad game, like by any means. Actually, well, I'm not gonna say by any means. He didn't have a great game, but I will credit him with creating that first goal that we scored, because he did strip the ball from the throw and eventually dished the ball off that would lead to the goal. So he did that, and that was great. I mean, all kudos to him for that. He didn't do too much outside of that. In fact, like I feel like I only noticed him more when he missed an opportunity. And there was a few of them. And the one I noted earlier was the like wide open header that, like when I say wide open, I'm not like, people use wide open a lot. I'm talking like 5 yards, 6 yards between him and the nearest defender. Like, and he was on the penalty spot. So like, not very far out of the goal at all. And he missed the frame of the goal. And that was the one that's just like, wow. Like, maybe he's still recovering from injury, so I'm not going to say like, he shouldn't play ever again. Like, obviously he's a great he's a great player. Like, we're not saying that at all. Like, this is what comes to mind when I thought about Dos Santos' performance. Just because, like, again, he didn't necessarily do anything terrible. He created that first goal, or at least started that process. But he was missing a lot of chances, and especially as a player who kind of like specializes almost in the headers, in the big man type of play. Those are ones that you really, really, really expect them to put away, and ones that you have to at least, like, at bare minimum, and that's not even should be like the bare minimum should be the goal there, but he didn't even get it on frame, and that one was the one that I thought of, and it's just so anyway. Long story short, Dos Santos, not a great game in my opinion. Did you see something different? Maybe a better review? Because I think he'll get better next week. I just thought this week was an off game. He's still recovering from injury. Did you see anything different?
A mixed bag for sure. A mixed bag. I think that. Well, it's kind of the Dos Santos play that I love, where he's getting physical, he's getting in there, and unfortunately, sometimes that leads to him losing those battles. But he gets in there because his gigantic frame, and he gets kind of clobbered because of it. But he's the guy that will stand up and go get clobbered in the middle of all the action in the middle. I think that, I mean, obviously, if he would have converted, we would have been singing his praises even better. But it was just, the passing wasn't amazing. the defense wasn't amazing until but with a couple highlights, right? And I think that's where it was, is like, consistently we expect him to be good to not great at this level, right?
Right.
And he wasn't. He was good. It was like, you're good, but from what we know of him, that's why you're grading him on that curve. I believe so. So yeah, in terms of like, was this the Dos Santos we always get? No, but caveats and explainers for all of that. But he was definitely pivotal in that moment that created the first goal, and he created the penalty that got us. He made a dispossession that got to the Dalgard goal, and then he created the penalty that became the second goal. So, so it's like, technically you did great, but it's like, if you're like on a game flow or something, you're he's okay, and then great. Okay, so how do you grade that? If you get an A and an F, it's still a C, right?
Right. Yeah. I think it's like it's harder to, like, when you're the main striker.
Yeah.
And you're kind of supposed to be the goal guy. In theory, Leo Fernandez and Jake LaCava, while they are scoring all the goals, they really shouldn't be the guys that we rely on to score all the goals. Like, it's usually supposed to be like the main striker, and when he misses opportunities like that, it's just kind of like the thing you think about first. Yeah. But again, like, he get tripped up. He did create that start the process of that first goal. The only reason I don't like fully say he totally created that second goal, the penalty, is because I think Leo Fernandez had more to do with it, because he created that space and then tapped the ball. It was a beautiful little pass to Dos Santos, who was already in the box, and then he got tripped.
Okay, that's fair.
That's the only reason I don't really credit him fully with that penalty. He did get tripped up, and that takes skill to hold onto the ball and draw that foul. But
I use the word gravity too, because with Dos Santos, he provides such a different skill set that just kind of so basically you got to put a man or two marked on him in the box, and that allows. I'm just all of these things. It's all interconnected, but I think that. What got me excited about this 11 and having Dos Santos back in there is I was like, oh wow, LaCava and Leo are gonna have even more space to be crazy and chaotic, and I'm loving it. And so that's why I'm like, that's chicken and the egg. But I see I completely I won't disagree with what you're saying on that.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying like I that's why I started by saying I'm not trashing on Dos Santos at all, especially because he's coming back from injury, still kind of getting back into the flow.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he played like a terrible game. That's not what I was saying. So he's hanging in there, and he again played a role in the win. That's not to say he didn't do anything. Like, he wasn't just sitting there, twirling his thumbs or anything. He played a role, and it was an important role. I mean, as the main striker, I mean, if we're scoring goals, you usually have at least some role in it. So again, decent performance, missed out on several opportunities, but still, again, contributed to the win. So other returning player that came back was Van Kazel. He was, I guess, kind of filling in for Antley, who's still kind of sort of injured. Yeah, we don't really hear too much about what the injuries are or when they got injured. I know he got tripped up. Was the July 4th celebration game.
Yeah,
I saw him on crutches coming off the field, but I actually saw him back on the field during the fireworks. He was walking around. So, I mean, maybe he's still just recovering from that. I thought Van Kazel had a pretty decent game. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I didn't really notice any mistakes. And if that's the case for a defense, then you're usually all right. Maybe the only thing was that on the second goal, he possibly kept the Hartford striker, whose name is slipping my mind right now, onside, eventually leading to the goal. Possibly. I mean, he was the last guy back there, but I still think that goal was offsides. I think the ref just missed a call. And I again, that's the only thing that I saw. but he played a pretty great game. He shut down a couple chances that were coming his way, and then other than that was pretty unnoticeable, which again I think is good for a defender usually. Am I missing something, Yurika?
No, well, we'll talk about the goals on the next little topic that we have written down here. So I'll table that for a second because I might have a controversial thing. But in terms of Van Kazel, I think he did all right. I think he did a solid job on the back line. I think that this was such a chaotic game that he was bound to have some fouls, but he never picked up a card.
Right.
He won just about half of the battles, and that was about as good as we were going to get. I mean, it's a 3-2 game, but 5 goals were scored. So guess what, guys? And there should have been more. So it was not a defensive. I think as a team, it wasn't well, I mean, it was a okay defensive effort. All things told, and I think Van Kazel had a lot to do with it, with clearing the ball, not letting Hartford with their few opportunities that they would have. I thought he got rid of the ball very well. I think that even if especially one of the things that was really, really good in this game is that when Hartford would get the ball, it was like it wasn't too long until we recovered it. So I think he was good in terms of that, good mix of that, and also creating from that back line forward for the offense to break forward. I thought that he did a good job with with those clearances, but also clearing it to people that could then turn into a transition. So I give him a good marks, not an A+ or anything, but I think it was a solid effort.
Yeah, nothing. I have nothing bad to say about Van Kazel. I mean, and I said that when we signed him too. He has played a lot as a defensive mid. So he's very dynamic in that way, and that what would usually, like you said, what would usually be a clearance for some defenders often ends up being the beginning of a counterattack or the beginning of great transition play, because he sees the field really well. So not something I particularly noticed this game, but something that I'm sure I might have just missed. Or, he's just one of those players that can do that. So always exciting to have him back there, and you never know when he's going to create something from the back line. And then last player we have listed here, one of the returning players, Jake Arman. Again, for me, nothing necessarily bad to say about him. He came in, did his thing, put in a few good crosses. I don't think he was involved on the last play that created the penalty. Maybe very early on in the possession, or he helped grab a corner, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, again, nothing necessarily bad to say about him. So, I mean, on my part,
he played fine. 16. Yeah, he played 16 minutes. They were 5 minutes. And it's good to see him back is the big thing.
Exactly.
But what I expect out of Araman? Really good passing.
Right.
Really good crosses and long balls. And defensive, but defensive statistics you can't, like, if you just win one duel, okay, but like I don't know, but defensive statistics for him more kind of rack up in the middle. Like he's kind of like just another one of these like Lewis Hilton type players that are just they're gonna maybe not kill you with one big gigantic play, although Araman can definitely do that with a nice cross or a long ball. It's more of this like death by 10,000 box cuts, like where they hurt you and they continue to do it more and more, and then eventually it racks up over time. So for 16 minutes, I thought he killed it. I thought he did a great job coming in.
Yeah, and FotMob says he completed 12 of 13 passes. So I mean, nothing bad to say about him there. So yeah, that's my review of Arman. Good. Yeah, I think that's all there is to say, honestly.
Well, and it's good to have him coming off the bench because I don't see him. Unless there's rotation needed or something like that. Like, there's not a person that I would put him in for. But hey, man, we're gonna need 20 minutes of a sub every night, and if we're gonna get that performance, great, let's go. Sure.
And I'll get into this when we talk about Loudon, but I think Loudon would be a great game for him to start. Coming back from injury again. I'm going to get into all of this, but Loudon's not necessarily the strongest team. I think it's a great game for him to start and get some minutes, and maybe give I guess that would be Dalgard some rest. on that side, or wait,
or Ekra, or
Ekra.
I mean, Hilton never takes a game off, so
Right,
I don't know.
right.
I don't know who's earned a rest, but I mean, you could also do some weird. You could go back to 3 in the back, put Wyke up. You could do. I mean, there's.
Yeah, that's the greatest.
So many different ways.
Yeah, that's what I've talked about earlier in some earlier episodes. Is this team is much more dynamic than past Rowdies teams in that way. Like, it's just very rare to see a team that can shift from like a 3 in the back to a 4 in the back to even a 5 in the back, where those like outside mids end up being left wing backs, right wing backs. Very dynamic team, and Armin plays a huge role in that because he can play as a midfield, as almost like a winger, and even as that left wing back. So great to have him on the team, and great to see him be healthy, because I'm sure that depth will be important in this big stretch of games coming up. Yeah, I mean, we need all the points we can get if we want to try and catch up with Louisville up on the top of the East. So with that being said, let's move on to the next question here, which we kind of touched on a little bit. The Rowdies owns pace, possession, kind of controlling the game by most stats, ish. Like, I
don't believe the stat. I don't believe, like, it felt like we owned the game.
I mean, not necessarily. I wouldn't say we were like dominating or anything. The commentator said we were dominating the game. I was like, I don't know about dominating. Like, I would say we controlled the game, the flow of the game, maybe the speed of the game. So I guess the question is then, why were these 2 goals conceded? I called one of them silly earlier. The second goal also kind of silly, potentially offsides. What do you think happened there? Because the only thing I can think of is, honestly, this might be a little too strong, but like honestly, kind of flukish goals.
Well, you're definitely not thinking like that Cochran would do what he did on the first one. I mean, deciding to header a ball into an area, and he didn't even have to. I mean, there was a Hartford guy like kind of there, but you have 2 hands. You're the one guy that gets to grab the ball with your hands, and that's all he had to do is grab the damn ball with his hands. Take 2 steps and either roll it or kick it. But he decides to header it into an area that had nobody. There was no Rowdies there.
Middle of the field.
Right in the middle of that field. And so now you've got I think it was a 3-on-2 situation, not including Cochran. And, sorry, that's the second one. But on that goal, no, that's the first goal for them. Sorry. Now, about the offsides, I 100% agree that the lead striker at like the moment that they're at their going is by 1 step offsides, but then like by the time the ball gets served in, the guy that actually Barrera, who buries it, was completely onside the entire time. You correct me if I'm wrong, but if the lead guy's offsides, it's just offsides, is it like kind of like does he have to if he's not involved with the ball, does it matter if he's onside or not?
I don't think so. I think if he lets it go, he's on.
Right, because
the play keeps going. I know some I think it's up to the discretion of the referee sometimes, but I feel like most cases I've seen it just kind of gone on, right?
Well, and it wasn't super blatant. To be honest, like for me watching it in real time, I was like, okay. But then, going through it frame by frame, I go, oh yes, if you see the line right there, and these 2 are on this, and this guy's over here. Yes, he was offsides, but he wasn't Barrera, and Barrera is the guy that got the ball fed into him, and then he just buried it. And it was part of the Rowdies were. Like 3 guys had their hands up immediately, like offsides, but it was like, well, the guy who kicked it was onside and he buried it. Sorry, guys. It was just one of those things. So maybe that's a little controversial, but we deserved what we put out there in the universe, and we decided to header a ball into a damn empty area. We decided to cry about offsides, and we didn't make the save. So, well, that sucks, man.
I agree. I think that first goal was on sides. I didn't see a problem with that. I thought the second goal was the one that was actually for me offsides, because that was the one that was like the little chip pass.
The one for Dolly that Barrera, like Rashawn Dolly comes like behind the back line of the and that's the one you're talking about. Okay,
but he slips behind Guillen.
Yes,
and I think it was Barrera. Yeah, it was Barrera who chipped a nice little pass right above the Rowdies back line, put it behind them. I thought that one was the one that was a little questionable.
Yeah, okay.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a matter of like maybe, a couple inches. So at the end of the day, not a huge, like, I think either way, even if he was onsides, like even if they had called, if he was onsides, I think it would have still ended up being a goal because Guillen just kind of lost his guy. So I'm not going to blame the ref for that. I think he might have missed a call, but I think it still would have been a goal no matter what. So I don't have a huge problem with that, honestly.
And Dolly just like absolutely eviscerated Cochran too. There's just like, I mean,
So I think that the second goal was, I would call the second goal less of a fluke. The first goal though was questionable, just very odd goal, and not something that CJ Cochran usually does. And
it's when the FIFA computer makes all your players like idiots in so the other team could score a goal.
Yeah. Those are the things that you'd expect out of, like, I don't know. I'm not gonna like call out any goalies. Like I'm saying, like, out of like a B team goalie.
Talk about the two teams. Just eviscerate. They're not here next year, so we can talk about them.
Yeah, basically, right. These are like the kids that come in and like it's like their first pro game ever, and they just kind of mess up. Like Cochran doesn't usually make those mistakes, like, ever.
Yeah,
ever. He's a vet of the game, and you would never expect that to happen. So definitely strange, and a fluke, in my opinion.
Well, on the flip side, though, I'll give him his flowers because I wanted to point out that he made a lot of really good saves in second half.
Exactly. That was the next thing to talk about here.
Dude, like, for everything I just said, he got toasted on one of the goals. Yep, he probably was the biggest catalyst to the first goal. Well, guess what? He redeemed himself because he pitched an amazing shutout in this for the rest of that game.
Yeah. Throw it away. Throw out all the negative comments.
Yeah, buddy.
Even on what was it? There was a offside call. One of them actually was Hartford put the ball in the net, but it was called offsides. The second one that was called offsides for Hartford, Cochran made just a crazy, really good save. That if it was called on, like if they just missed that call, it would have been an incredible save. So I'm still going to shout him out for that because it was just a fantastic save.
Great.
And he made a bunch of great saves one-on-one. When Hartford, like, again, Hartford wasn't really creating, like, they didn't have sustained pressure or anything, but they had these, like, kind of random chances where they broke out one-on-one. They had, 2-on-2. And Cochran kept coming up big. So whatever, throw it out the window, any negative thing I just said, because I mean, he ended up having a good game and kept us in the game and whatever. So I'm not gonna smack talk him very long. I mean, he's been the reason we've stayed in some games, the reason we've won a bunch of games. So yeah, whatever. I don't care anymore. Like to throw that goal away to the fluke because he made up for it.
Well, if we wouldn't have won, we would have been like, oh my God, Cochran is a fluke or whatever. Like, oh my God, he had this bad game.
Put Ryko back.
We would have said we would have said like, oh God. Well, and then our next thing is about like a lot of the cards in the second half. So it's like, oh my God, Lawrence Wyke, there he goes again, pulling on people's jerseys and creating, us in a position. The red was, I'll get your opinion on that, but like, it just kind of a flurry of cards out of nowhere, and I'm hoping that it was just like fluky, and this is what happens, and the refs just sort of like getting the bearings of this like whirlwind that is now like got. I'm trying to even see when this happened, but it was like all in succession of like in the 60 is a 60 something minute, like just before the Dos Santos penalty, there were almost three straight yellows that we got.
Yeah. It was a little, I mean, I don't know, maybe it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. They got a little emotional. Started getting a little gritty, stuck in a little bit. Yeah, I mean, the player I expect that from most games is Lawrence Weick. I mean, it's kind of expected at this point. This guy is just a ball of emotion. He's always yelling on the field, and
Yeah.
and sometimes, kind of at random times where it's like, dude, like what? Like just calm down. Like there's no need for that. Other times, it feels like he kind of brings out some good play in him, good play in the people around him. Um, so I don't know. I mean, the yellow cards were kind of a flurry of, I don't know, a little few unnecessary fouls, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I don't think it was a huge deal, to be honest. I mean, I think they just got a little too emotional and started getting stuck in a little bit more. It's not something that happens too often with the team, so just a one-off thing of getting frustrated is the way I see it.
How'd you feel about Scarlett's red?
I thought it was one of those things where it's, again, I feel like sometimes it's just up to the discretion of the referee, because sure, he followed through with the tackle that was kind of studs up, but I don't know, it was pretty soft, straight red. Most of the times you'd see that be a yellow.
Yeah.
Definitely a foul. Sure, whatever. Definitely a foul. Probably a yellow. Straight red is pushing it, in my opinion.
Maybe he reached for the wrong card and wouldn't, he didn't want to
he
say that he made a mistake.
Yeah, that would have been embarrassing. But hey, I mean, blessings in disguise. Things happen for a reason, because that red card, I think, was the reason that all that extra time ended up being added, and ended up scoring a goal. So everything happens for a reason, I guess. I mean, God's plan, divine reason. I don't know what happens. Yeah. As Drake once said.
If they're gonna give us another 6 minutes just because we stud some dude to go down 10 men, hey man, sometimes in this game we needed it and we converted. So
yeah, and all the extra time usually with 10 men, I mean, not a good thing. You just want to end the game at that point. But so I don't know, man. It was a weird game, and eventually we won, so I'm not going to complain. Whatever. Yeah, just a crazy game, and it was fun to watch. I won't lie. So Leo Fernandez, just 2 penalties, crazy stuff. I thought something interesting to note here. Guinzotti was in. He came in with Armin and Lucky Mkosana essentially right after the first penalty. Leo Fernandez scored that, ice in his veins, whatever. That second penalty, Guinzotti started off with the ball in his hand. And then there was, you could tell there was a brief conversation there, very, very brief, because he quickly gave the ball to Leo.
Yeah.
Who put it in, ice in his veins, whatever. Just a god amongst men right now. I'm really curious. What do you think Guinzotti wanted to take that, or do you think he was just holding it for Leo? Like, what was going on? What do you think was going through his head?
I think that 100% Leo Fernandez was always going to take and will take every penalty kick until further notice. But I also 100% believe that Guinzotti is like, I could take this right now and I could put it in the net. But that's how they're wired. That's how I want them to be wired. So yeah, man. I just think, I don't know what he's doing, visualizing or doing something. I don't know, but maybe it's games. I don't know. All I know is that there was no controversy. If anything, Guizi's probably telling Leo, get it, let's go.
Yeah, I think
that's
it.
Mostly. That's all.
Yeah, I think he was just kind of handing it off to him, picking it up for him. Maybe with the ball in his hand, Leo would be like, "You want to take it?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I bet." Whatever. But I think when it got 96 minutes,
they rock paper scissor.
Yeah. Leo's been in there longer. It's the right call.
Yeah.
Although in my mind, I was hoping for if you've ever seen Ted Lasso, the Danny Rojas where he kills the dog on a penalty. Later episode, he comes in and scores this huge penalty. I was hoping for a Danny Rojas moment where every time I think of Sebastian Guinzotti taking a penalty, I think of the USL Championship final last year. He comes in now, slots the game winner against Hartford, huge win. That's kind of what I was picturing in my head. Evidently, we didn't get the Danny Rojas moment. We got a Leo Fernandez, ice in his veins moment. Equally good in my opinion. So I don't care. I'm happy either way.
That's what Guizi said to him. He goes, "Football is life," and then throws him the ball.
Exactly. That's what I imagine he said. Whatever.
Unfortunately, Guizi had his moment to kick the penalty kicks, and I know we were very, very vocal in our displeasure with him missing a bunch of them, up to and including the final. And we got what we wanted. We got a different person kicking those penalty kicks. And I mean, trust me, Neil was very defensive of Sebastian Guenzati taking those kicks. And finally, just enough was enough. And now Leo's in there. And until, like I said, until further notice, Leo Fernandez. I even joked with Neil, and Neil, I think, was gonna jump over the thing and choke me if he could, because I was like, hey, maybe Jake LaCava could have took that penalty kick last week. And no, he was like, no, he was like, I don't even want to joke. I can't even joke about this. So anyway, there was no doubt, but football is life. So
and I've talked in the past about my desire for Guenzati to be getting more playing time, because again, we're scoring. I'm not saying, I understand the philosophy of, if it's not broken, don't fix it. We've been coming out with points most games here, and Guenzati's been coming in the last 15 minutes ish most games and closing out the game, injecting some energy into the game, not necessarily scoring goals in those last 15 minutes, but whatever. Again, we'll get into this in a little bit when we quickly preview the Loudoun game, but I think this would be another great game for Guenzati to get that starting role and maybe earn back the confidence of Neil Collins, because, again, Steven Dos Santos had a fine game. Kyle Gregg in the past has had fine games when he was starting instead of Dos Santos. But in most of these games, in this huge stretch of great results, it's just been relying on our wingers, or in some cases, I guess, our attacking mid, where Leo Fernandez has been playing that attacking mid role. It's been Leo Fernandez and Jake LaCava. That's it. Not our striker. So, again, maybe Steven Dos Santos plays a role in that because he draws the attention of a defender, an extra defender or two, whatever. But I think Guenzati slotting in there, at least maybe one half and one half. I don't know. Guenzati gets in there for a half and gets a little more playing time. I think he could seriously make, something happen more so than Kyle Gregg or Dos Santos, just because he has that talent in him. I don't think he's meant to be a last 15 minutes of the game type player. That's not who he is, and we've seen that in the past because he's been in the race for the Golden Boot. You know what I mean? That's just Dos Santos and Kyle Gregg have never been in that kind of Golden Boot conversation. That's Guenzati's always been that guy. So I mean, that's my personal argument for Guenzati to get more playing time here, to get a start against Loudoun or something. But anyway, I digress.
No, I'm with you. We'll get into it a little bit more when we talk about Loudoun. But yeah, I agree with you. Yep.
Yeah, and I saw you noted this on our notepad here. Volt sucks. What's going on here? Are you very anti the Volt uniform?
I don't know how many. I never know if this is the last time I'll ever get a microphone in front of my face. I just want to say I hate the Volt kits. I hate them. I want them to be retired. I want them to go far away. We could do rainbow kits. We could do, because they play in St. Pete. They could wear a flag of St. Pete. They could wear zigzags and polka. I don't care, but just get. I hate them. I hate their Sharpie. Their Sharpie yellow. I hate the sun reflects off of them. I hate that. I think my TV is going through an aneurysm when I'm watching the game. I don't like them, and so that was it. If there's a petition, when I am king, those are getting oh my god, yeah. Whoever's taking over for Lee Cohen, that's the first thing I'm asking them and petitioning them is to eradicate. Or you know what I should get a really good job at Puma, and then I'll just we don't have Volt anymore. I'm so sorry, it's not even an option. Oh, we want to, but sorry.
Yeah, I don't know why that continues to be the jersey. There's definitely better ways to approach an away jersey for a team with as unique a color scheme as the Rowdies, green and gold and whatnot. I'm not saying we should just have a plain white or plain black away kit.
No, I hate those too.
Yeah, those are kind of. But I mean, there's definitely something you can do better. Like I love our 2014, 2015 kit. I think the away kit was like a white center with the Hard Rock logo and whatever. I think it was a different sponsor at that time actually, but and then the sleeves were the green and yellow hoops, kind of like.
Well, we'll get those. We'll get those next year, I believe. That's the rumor on the street was that Puma kind of had to like get through this year, and then they're already designing the kits that we all want next year. Mm-hmm. All I'm saying is well, look, and this is a league wide thing. We're talking about merchandising. I don't, other than maybe kids. Okay, maybe kids want to like wear the like lime green. Oh, that's so cool. Because like USF does this stuff too to be different, and I think they look horrible.
I kind of like the USF slime jerseys. I'm not even. I thought those are kind of cool.
They've done them a couple times as like an accent. Like the slime is a weird. Cool. Well, and it's like with football, they can wear them one game out of the entire year. I've had to see these Volt jerseys for 2-3 seasons now. I don't want it anymore. But what I do want is like, come up with a cool design, a weird, wacky, like, dude, with stripes or zigzag, whatever, man. But just something that you could then incorporate something about the city of St. Pete that you play in, or the Tampa Bay area at large, or something like, or maybe this got like, incorporating Al Lang's architecture or something into it. But you could do so much more than just bright yellow and black numbers. I'm sorry, but here's my soapbox. I'm getting off it now. Okay.
All I'll say is that since we put on the Volt kit, we've been playing pretty well away. I don't know. I'm not gonna say it's the reason we've been playing well away, but I mean, ever since we switched over to that, I think. I don't know if it was last season or the season before. I think it was the season before that we turned around the away results. Whatever. Long story short, we got an away result this week.
Yes.
It was a great away result.
Yes.
Dramatic away result.
Yes.
Yurika.
Yes.
Who was your man of the match for this away result? Who was the most important player? Who do you think deserves that recognition?
Last week, Brett and I definitely did not pick the guy who scored the goals as our man of the match. This week, Leo Fernandez, my friend, ice in his veins, and he is my man of the match, not only because of those penalties, but yeah, man, he drilled the penalties. And as much as criticism as we're going to give people when they miss, and Leo has missed kicks last week, and criticism. Well, guess what? He nailed 2 of them this week. He should get all the flowers for it. But creating, LaCava should have a goal. Well, Leo's the one that set that one up. Duba should have a goal, right? But that's because Leo Fernandez set it up, right? So it's like he was creating. He was doing so well at so many different facets of the game, and the reason why we could have 10 men, well, we have Leo Fernandez, who's just as good as 4 dudes. So, boom, man of the match.
Yeah. Last week I kind of wanted Jake LaCava to take the penalty only because he would have had the hat trick, and that would have been such a random. Like, I'm not saying Jake LaCava is like a random player, like, but he is like a loanee, and he's probably gone by the end of the year. It would have just been such a random like player to have in the history books where it's like Georgie Hristov, the only hat trick, and then like Jake LaCava. It's like, what? Anyway, whatever. Man of the match, I'm not going to disagree with you. I mean, ice in his veins, Leo Fernandez. And apart from that, like, I kept noting that, like, as we talked about the recap, he created a bunch of the chances I talked about that we missed. There's just not much more to say. He was the guy, and he continues to be the guy, and he hopefully will continue to be the guy. Like, I mean, that's all there is to say, honestly. Leo Fernandez.
As much as I hate the Volt kits, something that each and every one of us could look way better in, that is a t-shirt from us here at RBLR. There's a link in the description. If you go to shop.rblrsports.com, we have designs celebrating the green and gold, celebrating and inspired by the Lightning, the Rays, the Bucks, you name it, it's all there. And if you use the promo code COYR, you're going to get 10% off your entire order, whether you order 1 shirt or 1 million shirts for everyone in your family. 10% off with the promo code COYR. All right,
nice.
Let's move ahead.
What a nice transition, too. Let me give you kudos for that. Are you kidding me? Like, that was smooth. Anyway, whatever. long story short, here we go. Let's jump into the standings here. Always a fun part to recap, especially noting that the Rowdies continue to. I guess they didn't really climb this week, but
we're there.
held their place at the
We're
top. Have that same little gap with Pittsburgh right behind them. Anyway, let me go through this real quick. We have Louisville in the lead, first place in the Eastern Conference with 39 points. Memphis on 38. Rowdies right on their tails with 36 points, although they have played one extra game than Memphis and Louisville. Pittsburgh and Detroit City sit right behind the Rowdies at 33 points. Tight race at the top here. Birmingham with 29 points. And the Miami FC with 24 points. Right behind them, you have FC Tulsa, I think rounds out the last playoff spot with 22 points. It's going to be interesting there to see who gets that last playoff spot, kind of that 7 and 8 spot in the Eastern Conference. It's going to be tight. And I guess even like Loudoun is kind of in the mix, but not really. They're a little bit out of it. So
they're going to have to do a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. The ones to keep an eye on here, it's this kind of 3-team race. Miami, Tulsa, and Indy. Definitely, some playoff quality games from those teams, but not consistent. So I think it's going to come down to which team gets on a bit of a hot streak, kind of like the Rowdies. Maybe not as long as the Rowdies, but I think one of them gets a pretty good streak of games going. I think they'll lock up that spot. It's going to be interesting to watch and definitely going to be fun to keep an eye on. And then we go out west here. San Antonio leads the Western Conference with 40 points. Colorado Springs right behind them with 36 points. Something to note here, Hartford beat Colorado Springs in Hartford last week. Yeah. So Hartford is on a bit of a streak of their own. Let me just point that out. We beat a Hartford team here that is playing really good soccer right now. So anyway, San Diego Loyal in third place, 34 points. LA Galaxy, skipped El Paso. El Paso Locomotive in fourth place with 33 points. Fifth place, LA Galaxy 2 on 30 points. New Mexico with 30 points in sixth place. Sacramento Republic with 29 points in seventh place. And in eighth place, Las Vegas Lights making a push for a playoff spot with 25 points. Getting better than they were last year for sure.
They still have a shot. They've got more of a shot. The West is a little bit more open in the bottom half there. Yeah,
they're in the mix. They're in the mix, and I mean, it'd be funny to see them in the playoffs after, with all due respect to them, they've been kind of a bit of a joke franchise with all those crazy promotion nights and everything going on. Which they had, I'm forgetting who it was. They had a baseball player out there, some legendary baseball player, and he was just hitting home runs at halftime. What's going on there?
It's like Jose Canseco or something.
It was
okay.
I was like, what's going on? Anyway, crazy stuff in Las Vegas. If they make the playoffs, who knows? I mean, a crazy franchise could have a crazy run. It's whatever. I don't know. Anyway, that's the standings. Yurika, let's look ahead to this game against Loudoun United, a team we've had success playing away. I was out there last 2 times we played them away. I've seen 2 wins. What are we looking for here? Do you want to run through the preview here?
Yeah, so Loudoun, we just ran it through. They're 12th in the Eastern table. 4 wins, 10 losses, 3 draws. That's good for 15 points. So they got a negative 14 goal differential. I mean,
not great.
Guys. It's been up and down their last 5. So they drew Tulsa. They lost to Orange County, who Orange County beat us obviously for the cup, but they have not had a very, very, very good year this year. They're at the bottom of the table. They conceded 3 goals to Orange County. Then here's a go. They beat Loudoun beat Phoenix Rising again, not having an amazing year as much as I think we broke Phoenix Rising, guys. We demolished them. This. And so anyway, there was 7 goals in that game between Phoenix and Loudoun, so not a lot of defense played there. And then we were shoveling dirt on the 2 teams. Well, let's shovel a little bit more. Loudoun lost to Atlanta United 2, and they beat New York Red Bulls about a month and a half ago. Red Bulls 2 in a 1-0 just barn burner. So up and down results, but I mean, who are they? I mean, is Loudoun Loudoun last year, very gritty, very. I mean, it was a hard fought win. We would win, but it would be pretty compelling up until the late stages of the game, and then we would end up putting 2 or 3 in the net. So, unfortunately, you know, are they going to come out with the team that has scored 9 goals in 3 games, or are they going to be the team that loses 2-0 to a 2 team, right? So, or 3-1 to a bottom feeder West team. So it's more, this game is more about what we do, because we might rotate. We'll talk about this in just a second, but for Loudoun, I mean, their top scorers, one is Abdelatif Abu Korora, and I just annihilated his name, but he's a 17-year-old Egyptian who's really been on a good run in the last month or so. He did score 2 of those goals against Phoenix, and he's up and down in his form, but you know, what do you expect? He can't even like buy cigarettes for God's sake. Like, so yeah, he's up and down, which you would expect out of a teenager. He has 4 goals. That's our leading scorer. Tied with him at 4 goals is an American 19-year-old named Tyler Freeman, but 2 of those goals have been in the last 3 games, so he's on a tear right now. But at this point, any member of their team could go on a nice extended run for a month and be at the top of their list for top scorers. Yeah. But they give up so many goals. They just really... Yeah, it's just it's a talent thing. They're a 2 team, right? They're always going to be a little devoid of talent. That's why these teams are probably more set for the MLS 3 division that's being created next year. So, so with all that said, I think it really comes down to what we do. So, do we rotate? Do we put in? I think they're going to rotate and go a little more old school. I think you're going to see Dos Santos up top. I think you're going to see Guinzotti get the start. I think you're going to see Raiko in goal. I think you're going to see Armin get the start. I think you might even see... Well, I mean, they're on the road, so if this were at home, we probably would play like one of the academy kids on the bench. I'm not saying a full quote-unquote rotation, because our guys are... Those guys would start for a lot of these teams. It's just that the Rowdies are built so deep that... You know, our bench is a good lineup for most teams in the USL Championship. So I say all that to say maybe that opens up like some rust or some of the problems that we had earlier in this season with like creating a lot of offense. You know, does that get negated with a very bad Loudoun defense? Those are my questions to you. What do you see? What do you see the Rowdies shaping up against Loudoun?
It's going to be interesting to see for sure. I mean, Loudoun's not good. This, first of all, like this is, I mean, that's just how it is. It's a 2 team, and I like having them in the league because it's the closest game to go to when I'm in DC in school. But it's never like, I don't know. They're just, a lot of these guys are kids. It's weird. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's kind of like when we play the University of Tampa, like. And it's like just a grown man and Steven Dos Santos winning a header against like a 5'6", 5'7" like kid. Like, it's weird, but I don't know. I mean, at the same time, I don't want to say we should just throw everything we've been doing out the window because they've scored a bunch of goals and a bunch of goals against, again, Phoenix Rising is not having a great game or great season. FC Tulsa's equally not having a great season. But these are also grown men that they're playing against, and they're scoring 4 goals, 2 goals, 3 goals against them. So I'm not saying we should just get rid of everything because we have to be a little careful. But I think our defense is much better than these other teams that they've played in this 9-goal stretch. But again, like you said, they've also let in 6 goals across the last 3 games against teams that, again, aren't offensively that great. So I don't know. It's a game where I want to say that we should be rotating the squad a little bit, but I'm also a little scared of kind of like what happened against like Charleston at home. And it's even a little more scary because we're away. So I think Neil knows that and understands that, and he's probably going to come out with a pretty strong lineup, not too dissimilar from these past games, just because it's not like a huge toll on the guys since there's like a week break in between every game. So I could see it coming out pretty similar to what we had this week. Maybe Guinzotti slots in instead of Dos Santos, or maybe he starts both of them. It kind of shifts the formation a little bit. Sub them out a little earlier than normal and have Lucky play a little more than normal in the second half. Maybe Tejada gets a little more playing time than normal in the second half, something like that. I don't see Neil coming out with like a heavily rotated team just because he seems to be of the idea, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, I think he'll rotate at least one or two new guys into the starting lineup, or not necessarily new, but like different from this past few weeks. Anyway, with that being said, predictions wise, I think we win 3-1.
Okay.
I think that's what I'll take, because you'll have a Lacava goal, hopefully a Gonzati goal, and a goal from a midfielder. I don't know who, but it'll be, I don't know, a shot outside the box. I think we just have, like, this is a team that we'll play against and have a lot of possession against. I think they'll be kind of sitting back a little bit, and I think our midfield will be able to take advantage of that and create a lot of chances where we penetrate the box, but also I could see Lewis Hilton or Jan Ekra getting some space and just ripping a shot from the top of the box. I think we should win, and anything less than that would be pretty disappointing, to say the least.
The only thing that I have to still, in the back of my mind, I have to be weary to say that for Loudon, they're going to play their A game. Like, these kids are, anytime you get a chance to go defeat the Rowdies, let's go. So there's that. Do we, if we play down to the level of our competition, which they have done from time to, or at least they've done for the first 20 minutes of games from time to time, right? That was like a huge talking point in the beginning of this year was, why don't we wake up until the first punch is thrown at us, right? If Neil trots out the same 11 he's been doing for 3 straight weeks now, they're gonna demolish Loudon. Okay, I mean, it's just the truth. Like, if Cochran in net and Fernandez, and I mean, I guess Dos Santos got in there, but like, even if it's Greg in there, like, if it's Fernandez, Lacava, Dalgard, pick your other center attacking midfielder, and they just roll out the same lineup. Yeah, there's this perfect storm of, like, we rotate some guys that have been on the bench or returning from injury to get them back into shape. We do some things. There's that it's not the molly-whopping. It's not the 5-0 win that we're going to get. So I'm going. I think we win. I think we win 2-1. I think that we concede a goal because we just kind of concede goals on the road. But Loudon's going to give up at least 2. So that's why I'm thinking, even if we play a sub, like, where we're just not throwing out our entire arsenal at them just to get 3 points on the road, even the rotated squad that I envision, they're still going to get 2. So I think they win 2-1 on the road, get on the bus, feel good about themselves, and get some fitness back into some of the vets that have been on the bench, but also some of the returning guys like Airman, Dos Santos, so on and so forth.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's all there is to say, to be honest. I mean,
yeah,
I hope Gonzati gets in, and because I think he could run it up on these children, frankly. And like, I just want to see our strikers, whoever it is, to be honest, like, getting some goals. Like, I don't know. It's our strikers need to be more involved in goals. Like, they're not scoring all the goals, and I hope, personally, again, I keep talking about Gonzati. I hope he gets a start here and can prove himself a little bit. Again, the game after that is at home against Atlanta United too. So again, like, chances to score more goals. Like, frankly, again, not a strong team by any means. So
yeah, you could score one on the road, tie the record, come home, score against Atlanta, break the record.
Exactly. Well, did he already tie the record?
He's one away from 60.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
Unless I'm wrong. Unless he scored somewhere along the road.
Yeah, that it would be nice to get him that goal at home, and I don't know. We just need. He's the guy that we know can score goals, so I think this would be a great game to kickstart that again. So That's it. That's all I have to say. We should win, and if we don't, I'll complain on Twitter for like 5 minutes and be upset and go to sleep.
Yeah. If there's some fluky goals and some weird thing, we're gonna have there's a lot for you and James to discuss next week. If that happens, I hope that we're talking more about a little bigger picture stuff, a little bit more about returning guys, a little bit more about. I hope that's the conversation we're having after resounding defeat of the Loudoun United.
There's just it's just so like we're on this stretch of just such great performances, generally speaking, that I don't see us losing that against Loudoun. But at the same time, I don't know, maybe that is one of those trap games where
it's more about us, man.
Yeah, you're in that mindset and you get too comfortable, whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Just go out there, play your game, and if you do that, you win by 3 goals comfortably. So whatever.
I think so. I agree. Well, the last thing I'll say is this has been really fun, Carlos. I don't know if you and I have done a show yet, just the two of us, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, man. Well, it felt really good, man. So thank you for being awesome and putting up with me being on the show for the last 2 weeks while you're out there leading the minds of our future, my friend. So I wanted to say to everyone who's been listening, you guys are amazing. You are the reason we do this. I'm going to ask you for one thing, and that is just follow us on social media. If you have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, we are at RBLR Sports. And then you can also like and subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening to Carlos's amazing voice. Wherever you're hearing that, there's a little like button or a subscribe button or a follow button. Click that bad boy. And whether you're on Spotify or you're on Apple Podcasts or you're on YouTube, click that button. And then every time we drop one of these amazing pieces of content, you're going to get it in your inbox. Boom, right there. So, Carlos, thank you for letting me sit in the chair and for leading this wonderful conversation, sir.
Thank you, Yurika. You do all the work behind the scenes, so always get to have your voice on the podcast, get them out in front of the people. Thank you for being here. I mean, if not, I'm just going to talk about the Rowdies by myself. Nobody wants to hear that. Just chatting to a microphone here for like an hour.
Don't give me ideas. We can make this work.
All right. Well, with all that being said, Yurika, thank you again for subbing in here for James. Looking forward to. I think he's back next week, right?
I hope so.
Anyway, we wish him luck in his travels around Germany. But with all that being said, this has been a great show. Looking forward to the game against Loudoun. Hopefully, lots of goals. Hopefully, I don't know. Sebastian Mazzarri hat trick. Who cares? I don't know. Just give me a bunch of goals. It's one of those games we should win by like 7 goals or something crazy.
Let's go.
I don't know. With that being said, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And come on, you guys.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.